Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast, Season 5. This podcast is for and about people getting ready for their first ever pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, Camino guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. Back again with the third step in our year-end process. If you haven't already listened to the previous 2 episodes of the podcast, you may want to do that before listening to this one, as they set the stage for this week's conversation. So far, we've spent a good amount of time looking back. In episode 18, we looked at what went well this year, and we celebrated those wins. In episode 19, we looked at what didn't go quite so well, and then we spent some time mining those things for lessons and observations we could take with us into the new year. Our next step is to look ahead to what we want to see in our lives next year. Specifically, in this session, I'll be talking about goals and intentions. This is technically the final episode of Season 5 of the podcast, as I usually stop with episode 20. But I have one more bonus episode for you. Next week, I will share with you my favorite New Year's practice of all, the one I've been doing since 1976. That for real final episode will come out a couple days earlier than usual, rather than on a Tuesday. That's because that Tuesday is December 31st, and that wouldn't give you much time to complete the final step of this process before the end of 2024. And of course, for anyone in Europe, Australia, or New Zealand, well, you'll already be into 2025 by the time Tuesday morning hits California, where I am. So if you are tuning in as these episodes are dropping, keep an eye out for that final episode 5 days after this one. This week, we are going to look at what you want for 2025. Now, there are 100 different ways to approach this, and I'm reminded of this fact every year at this time when my inbox fills up. I'm on a bunch of email lists for people who inspire me or who have helped me with my Camino business over the years, or whose work I follow. And it seems as though many of those people also have a year-end process. Well, I say that to remind myself to mention that it matters less which method you use and more that you do use some method to look ahead to the new year and explore what would make it the best year yet for you. I will share with you my method, which you may remember was inspired by the book Your Best Year Yet by Ginny S. Ditzler. That's Ditzler. But do feel free to tweak what I share with you for your own use. If I share something that doesn't resonate with you or that you can't see yourself caring about or doing, then skip it or replace it with something that works for you. All right? I'm going to start with some questions for you to ponder that will help you uncover what you truly want for 2025, in case you don't already know. And if you do know, you can use some of these questions to dig deeper into what you want and why you want it. Then I will share 3 different ways to approach setting your goals, in case the questions don't immediately uncover what it is you want to aim for next year. Next, we'll look at how to set your goals in a way that increases the likelihood you'll achieve them. And finally, I'll share 6 tips to help you stay on track and increase your chances of realizing your goals. We are going to cover a lot of ground in this episode, so grab some paper and a pen, and let's get going. We'll start with the questions to help you uncover what you want. This first step is your time to dream big. It's time to use your imagination. If possible, try not to edit or censor yourself in this step, meaning everything that sounds good to you goes on this page. Try to set aside all those chatty voices that tell you something isn't possible, or that your dream is too big, or that you don't deserve to have that thing in your life. Instead, allow yourself the dream of having everything your heart desires. Here are the questions. What do you want more of next year? The default answer to this question is often money, of course. Why? Because having money means we can have all the stuff we want. We can do more cool things, and we can go more interesting places, and so on. The question I'd like you to ponder, if money comes up as your answer to this question, is how will you feel when you have more money, or a nicer car or house, or a bigger savings account? How will you feel if you get to travel more, or if you are able to walk the Camino next year? In other words, what experience are you longing for that you think money can give you? And how will you feel when you have that experience? Things that come to mind for me are more freedom, more adventure, more connection to people with shared interests and values. Those are the things I want more of, and I want them regardless of how much money I have or earn next year. Maybe what you want more of is time with your family, time with friends, time to work on things that matter to you. To answer the question of what you want more of next year, you may want to go back to your list of accomplishments to see if there is anything there you'd like to expand on or grow or increase in 2025. The next question is, what do you want less of? This is the other side of the coin. Are you ready for less stress, less worry, less chaos or craziness? Maybe you want to work less or hate your job less. It could be that you want less clutter in your home or fewer commitments on your calendar. Having less of something can miraculously open up your life and your calendar for more of what you do want. So don't shortchange this question. Next question. Who do you want to be on January 1st, 2026? Did you catch that? January 1st, 2026. That's a year from now. Is there someone inside of you just waiting to bust out? Do you sense there is a bigger, bolder version of you ready to come on the scene? Or maybe it's not that dramatic. It could be that you want to see yourself in a new role next year, like husband or wife, or grandparent, or a better friend, or business owner, or board member. How about this? 1 year from now, would you like to think of yourself as a peregrino or pilgrim? Or how about someone who volunteers, say an hospitalero? Those are the people who host and serve pilgrims in the albergues on the Camino. Or maybe you dream of owning an albergue on the Camino. Who do you want to be a year from now? Next question. What do you love about your life now that you're going to keep and nurture and grow next year? Take another look through your list of 2024 accomplishments. What did you start this year that you will expand and develop next year? Did you start a business or a side hustle that you know is about to take off? Is there a relationship in your life that you would like to nurture and deepen? How can you make your home more homey and more you? Or maybe you're in the middle of planning for your pilgrimage on the Camino, and the logical extension of that is that you get yourself to your starting point and walk. Last question. When you get to the end of next year, how will you know you had a good year? What new circumstances do you want to be in? Where will you be? Who will you be with? What will be your measures for success and satisfaction? And here's my favorite way to ask this. What do you want to be grateful for having in your life 1 year from now? It's possible that by now you know what you want to focus on for next year. If that's the case, congratulations. But if not, I want to share a few more ways you could go about discovering some goals for 2025. So far, we've been looking at a broad, unstructured, big sea of possibility, which doesn't work for everyone. Some people need or at least appreciate some structure or a framework within which to choose their focus and goals. So here are 3 additional ways you could approach this. 1. Identify the roles you play and set a goal or intention for each role. For example, for being a mother or father, or a wife, husband, or partner. A goal for being a friend, or a business owner or boss. a goal for being an employee, or sister, brother, volunteer, citizen, pilgrim, or pilgrimage guide. Choose your top 3 roles and set a goal for each. Number 2, another way to look at this is with some thematic areas of your life. For example, you could set a financial goal and a professional or work goal, and emotional, physical, and spiritual goals. You could set a goal for your mental or intellectual development. If I were taking this approach, I would choose the theme or area that I most wanted to focus on and set one big goal for that area, and then smaller goals for the other areas. And our third way to approach this, the last one, you could focus on your values and set goals and intentions for those. For example, my highest values are freedom, living simply, kindness, discovery, and generosity of spirit. Within those values, I could set a goal for travel and one for giving of my time and money. What are your values? Well, I mentioned some in the last episode. Maybe some of these are your top values: integrity, honesty, self-care, intelligence, street smarts, competition, cooperation, compassion, purpose. What do you value most? What intention or goal could you set to help you deepen the expression of your values in your life? Well, this is a lot to think about, yes? I recommend spending some time with these questions and considerations and reflecting on the different areas of your life in which you might like to set some goals. And I recommend doing that before you finish listening to the rest of this episode. That's because you will need to have a few clear ideas or goals to move on to the next part. So if you haven't already, grab your paper and pen and find a comfortable, quiet spot or a loud, bustling spot to stir up the creative flow and think and feel your way through what you want for 2025. And then once you have your goals in mind, go ahead and listen to the second part of this episode. Welcome to the second part of this week's topic on setting goals and intentions for the next year or for the next phase of your life, however you define that. In this part of the episode, I will be sharing a method that increases the chances of achieving your goals, using walking the Camino as an example. Be sure to have a few goals in mind before you listen to this part of the episode. That way you can dig in and do some specific planning for next year. Our next step in the goal-setting process is to look over your brainstorming notes and pick out the top 3 goals that make your heart sing and your spirit soar. Or if you aren't the singing and soaring type, you may ask instead, what are the top 3 things that make the most sense for you, that seem like you really want or need at this point in your life? Is walking the Camino one of your top 3? Or if you've already walked the Camino, is your second Camino or volunteering on the Camino one of your top 3? I'm just curious about that. Once you've selected your 3 goals for 2025, let's see if we can finesse them a bit. And by finesse, I mean let's get them into a format that will increase the chances you will reach them. I'm going to share with you a neat little wordplay trick that helps clarify goals and bring them into focus. You may have heard this before, so I don't expect it will be revolutionary or eye-poppingly exciting, but I find I need to remind myself of this from time to time to increase my chances for success. Also, let me be sure to give credit to the 3 people who developed this concept way back in 1981, George Doran, Arthur Miller, and James Cunningham. Here it is. Make your goals SMART. That's an acronym, by the way. SMART, SMART goals. A couple of the letters could mean different things, but I'm going to say it this way. Make your goals specific, measurable, achievable, resourced, and time-bound. Let's break this down, and we'll use walking the Camino as an example. S is for specific. When it comes to goal setting, I don't think it's enough to simply say, I am going to walk the Camino in 2025. Instead, let's be specific. When will you walk? What month? What route will you walk? How long will you take? With whom will you walk? Every detail you write down makes the goal more real. Here's an example of a specific Camino goal. My goal is to walk the Camino Francés route starting in May 2025. I intend to reach Santiago in 38 days, and I plan to walk with my friend Tiffany. The next step, M. M is for measurable. How will you know when you reach your goal of walking the Camino? How will you measure it? Will you walk every step of your chosen route, or will you piece together your own itinerary? Will you carry your backpack, or will you use the luggage transport services? Will you walk over the Pyrenees? Will you walk into Santiago and receive the Compostela certificate? Here are some examples of things you can measure. My goal is to have $3,000 in my Camino fund by July 1st, 2025, and to book my plane ticket to Spain by July 15th. My goal is to walk every step of the Camino Francés route from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago. My goal is to carry my backpack the entire way. Can you see how all of those are measurable? We will be able to tell easily if those three things are accomplished. That brings us to our next step, and that is the letter A, which is for achievable. This is a good one, and one that can really trip you up. For many people, walking the Camino seems like an unachievable, unattainable dream. But is it? I'd like to share an example from my travel history that will illustrate that something seemingly unattainable may actually be achievable. In 1996, I said yes to joining a friend on a year-long round-the-world trip. At the time I agreed to go on the trip, I had $8,000 in credit card debt and exactly no money in the bank. I also had a full-time job that kept me pretty busy with international travel. Oh, and there were only 9 months until the projected departure date for the round-the-world trip. I definitely didn't have the money for a trip like that, and I had a commitment taking up most of my time. No way, right? Totally unattainable. 9 months later, I was on a plane with $10,000 in the bank and no debt. Turns out that goal was attainable. Now, I know it wouldn't have been attainable for just anyone. What I haven't told you yet is that I was single with no children, I didn't own a house, and I didn't have a car payment. So my obstacles were relatively minor. The trip was feasible. It would just take some focus and determination. So here we may need to define achievable. I want you to define achievable in the universal sense. In other words, can your goal be done by someone? Is it possible in the big picture world? Have other people done it? If the answer is yes, then your goal is achievable. It can be done. You may not know how, but you know it can be done by someone somehow. And that someone may as well be you. So let's try on a different word here. Is your goal feasible? The word feasible messes up the SMART acronym though, doesn't it? That's why we use achievable or attainable. These words all mean that yes, it can be done. Your goal can be reached. Which brings us to the real question. What will you need to arrange and shift and sort out to make it happen? Which brings us to the letter R. Some goal planners say R is for realistic. Others say it's for relevant. But I say it's for resourced, meaning do you have the resources you need to make your Camino goal or any goal a reality? What resources are currently available to you? Resources can be financial, the money needed to pay for your travel to and from the Camino and for your food and lodging on the way. It can also be gear, backpack, trekking poles, sleeping bag, which you may need to buy, but which may also be available to borrow within your circle of friends or larger community. It can also be people resources to manage life at home while you are away, especially if you own a house or have young children. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Perhaps it will take a village to get you to the Camino. What resources will you need to reach your goal of walking the Camino. And last one, T is for time-bound, meaning it goes on the calendar. There is a clear projected start and end date so that you have something to work toward. Be sure to put your Camino or other goal on the calendar. You may have a different goal than walking the Camino. Regardless, you can use this SMART process to map out what you want to achieve next year and to identify the resources needed to make it happen. Specific, measurable, achievable in the universal sense, resourced, and time-bound. Okay, you've been doing a lot of brainstorming and envisioning and writing and imagining. Now let's look at some tips for how to make your goals come to life. First tip, write them down. That makes them more real. And then post them where you can see them every day. I can't tell you how many times I have set the most inspiring goals only to forget about them because I wrote them in a journal and never looked at them again. Next tip, read your goal to yourself every day. First thing when you wake up and then again before you go to sleep. Next tip, check your progress every week. Pick a day of the week and a specific time and make it a ritual or a date with yourself. Next, enlist people to cheer you on. The more people you tell about your goal, the more accountable you will be. Next tip, connect with others who have or have had the same goal. They can be your greatest source of support. And now let's really throw our hats over the wall. Plan the celebration party now and put a date on the calendar, and then work towards your goal with that date in mind. In our Camino example, that could be your departure send-off party for when you're leaving to go to the Camino. Or it can be the celebration when you return home and share about your pilgrimage with your inner circle of family and friends. Before I wrap this up, I want to say a few words about a close cousin of goal setting, and that is setting intentions. Intentions are similar to goals, but they're also quite different. In general, intentions don't really conform to the SMART structure, meaning they're more difficult to articulate in specifics and are harder to measure. For me, intentions are more about how I want to feel and act in the world. They're more about the character traits I want to develop or embrace than they are about something I can tell people about or share on social media. They are more an expression of values than they are about getting things done. Let me share some examples. One year, I had the intention of being more generous. I could certainly set a goal to volunteer my time a certain number of hours or to give a certain dollar amount to charities and nonprofit organizations. But what I was really longing for was to feel more generous, less stingy, like I had more to give, with more a sense of abundance and less a feeling of scarcity. So I set an intention of being generous of spirit. It's hard to measure, yeah? How would I know if I was generous of spirit? The thing with intentions is that they require a level of attention and awareness more than a disciplined routine of making to-do lists and checking things off. Instead, you may want to focus on rituals rather than routines. For example, each time I volunteer, I take a moment or two to reflect on how it feels to be generous with my time and on how grateful I am for the opportunity to help out. Each time I give money to a good cause, I pause to think about who is being helped and how fortunate I am to be able to give rather than to be in a place of need. The ritual is to pause and reflect and notice the connection between the act and the feelings. And curiously, my desire to be generous simply grows. Here's another example. You could set an intention to get better at self-care. A first step could be to set aside 5 minutes a day to meditate or to simply be still and contemplate the question, what is self-care for me today? Even if nothing else happens around that intention, remember, it's not a goal. The conversation is in play. And that attention increases awareness, which in turn brings greater focus and a likelihood of different behavior around the intention. The perfect place to look for New Year intentions is with the question I posed back at the start of this episode. What do you want more of in 2025? Do you want more love, more peace, or more joy? How about more ease in your day? You could also refer back to the earlier discussion of values. Do you want more or a deeper experience of what you already value? Integrity, honesty, self-care, intelligence, street smarts, competition, cooperation, compassion, purpose? It's challenging to set goals around values, so I set intentions instead. This year, I'm looking at my value of freedom and how I want that to evolve and expand. I'll be honest with you, I haven't done this part of the practice myself yet. I don't yet have goals for 2025, and I'm not sure who I want to be on January 1st, 2026. Not yet. I will be spending the week between Christmas and New Year's focusing on this, so I can choose my focus and goals for the next year. Are you with me? I hope so. And I hope you'll tune back in just 5 days for the for real final episode of Season 5 of the podcast. Okay, I'm signing off now to go put together my goals for 2025.